Hi there, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. And I am very excited to have a fantastic interview today with attorney Tim Stickradt. He is a partner over at HS&A law firm. It's a bankruptcy firm in the Detroit area of Michigan. And we are very excited to have you here today. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Erica. My pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about bankruptcies and some of the strategies and some of the choices people have and how they choose them. I know that they're very, very lucky to have you to help them through this process because things can get complicated depending on your financial situation and what assets you have and how much you make and your family situation. So we're going to delve into all of these issues surrounding picking which option to go with when you are having financial difficulty. And so we're going to start off with, what are some of the goals that people are trying to accomplish with bankruptcy when they're considering filing?
Well, Erica, there's a broad range of goals that people have when they're contemplating bankruptcy, anywhere from reducing their debt picture to finding a more affordable way to pay back certain debts, possibly to stop a foreclosure on a house or prevent a repossession of a vehicle, maybe to prevent or stop a garnishment of wages. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are many reasons and many reasons people would file, and many different goals that people are trying to achieve with filing.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like it because, there are so many different situations out there. Everybody's different. Every situation is unique. And I mean, that is something that we always like to talk about. I do want to just touch base with you really quick. Just let people know that you are open right now during this pandemic and everything is running smoothly. Is there anything that you'd like to mention on that before we go into the nitty-gritty of this topic?
Yes, that's a great point. We are open. We are working for our clients actively. Most of us are working from home. Our team, though, does meet on a virtual basis every day, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes the whole group of us. So within the firm here, we're still working. We're still working on our ongoing cases, and we're still filing new cases for people. We're doing our meetings with new clients and present clients, both over the phone and over a Zoom teleconference like this. So that hasn't stopped. That's been relatively seamless. Also, it's important to note that the bankruptcy courts are still open. Once again, they're not open to walk into physically, but they are doing hearings and filings and all that stuff remotely. So if you were to need to file bankruptcy, not only could we get in or have a discussion with you and get a case filed for you within a very short period of time, but also the court schedule hasn't really changed much. It's still typically about 30 days or so from the time the case is filed till the time when that first meeting happens with the trustee. The only difference now is that rather than having to go meet with the trustee, we're doing the trustee meetings over the telephone, and in some cases through a Zoom type conference like we're doing here.
That's really good to know. And it's nice to know that you are working on keeping everyone safe, your clients and your staff, and still accomplishing the goals that need to be accomplished for your clients right now in their time of need. So that's really good to know, and just wanted to make sure that the audience knows that you are open for business, you're working every single day, and you have been through this entire time. At this time, I think it's been about 3 weeks for most people, 3 or 4 weeks that the economy has been on lockdown, and so is life as we know it. So that's really good to know. So we're going to start off by talking about the different types of bankruptcies that you help people with out of your law firm. And the first one is a Chapter 7. Now, I think Chapter 7s, as I understand it, they're mostly for individuals. You wouldn't see a business filing a Chapter 7, would you?
Well, yeah, usually Chapter 7s are filed by individual people or married couples. However, Chapter 7s are filed by businesses as well. Typically, though, when a business files Chapter 7, that means that they're going under. They're no longer going to provide their service or continue to do business. They're just basically liquidating their assets and walking away from the business, whatever it might be. But most cases are, individual consumer cases that we do. That are, again, either a person filing or a married couple filing.
That's interesting. So, is there anything about Chapter 7 that we should know when considering filing for that? And what are some of the attributes to the Chapter 7 that would help us make that decision?
Well, generally, a Chapter 7 is filed to eliminate debt. So certain types of debts that you may have are what we call dischargeable in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy case. For example, the most common things we see are credit card debt, medical bills, money owed on cars that were either repossessed or turned in early, things like personal loans, payday loans, things like that, just basic unsecured debts that you can just eliminate in Chapter 7. To some extent, other things like taxes, older income tax debt can be discharged in Chapter 7, and there's a number of other types of debt.
And so, in comparison, what would you say about a Chapter 13 bankruptcy?
So yeah, Chapter 13, by comparison, is more of a restructuring of your debt. So the way I like to say it is, let's just say your monthly bills are $1,000 a month between your credit cards and your car payment, let's say. For example, in a Chapter 13, we might be able to reduce that down to $500 a month, and you still keep your vehicle. So the idea is to get your debts to fit in your budget. And that makes sense. Usually you don't come to a bankruptcy attorney or think about filing bankruptcy if you're easily able to afford your payments every month. But when it gets to the point where, the money going out is more than the money coming in, that's when it's time to take some action. And sometimes that means Chapter 7, just getting rid of as much debt as you can. And other times that means Chapter 13, where rather than paying it all back, you're just paying back what your budget allows you to pay back.
Well, that does make a lot of sense. And I'm sure that it's a huge relief to your clients who have been struggling to, pay a mountain of bills that they can't afford. So, that's really great. Is there one bankruptcy that you see more people filing for than the other?
There's a lot of factors that go into that. And if you ask that question to someone else, they might give you a different answer. I would say we file more Chapter 7s than Chapter 13s, but not by a lot. It really comes down to your situation. I mean, usually your situation dictates which bankruptcy would be more effective and be more beneficial to you. There are times where you may have an option and you have to decide what makes more sense. But usually you walk in with a situation that either calls for a Chapter 7 or it calls for a Chapter 13.
So what are some of the factors that you look at when you're deciding which option is best?
The first thing we do to narrow the field down is to determine, do you even qualify to file a Chapter 7? Okay, so for example, if you filed a Chapter 7 within the last 8 years, you're not eligible to file another Chapter 7 until it's been 8 years since your prior case was filed. So we have to look at that. Then another thing we have to look at to see if you qualify for Chapter 7 is your income. We look at how much income you've earned over the last 6 months. And it depends on the size of your household, how many people you're supporting. Are you married? Do you have any kids? Are you supporting someone else? The more money that you earn, the more people that you're supporting, the more money you can earn and still qualify to file Chapter 7. So we have to look at that. Can you even do it? Is it legal for you to file Chapter 7? Once we determine, yes, okay, this person has not filed a Chapter 7 in the last 8 years, and their income is within the range eligible to file Chapter 7, then we have to look at, does this make sense strategically? Are there any assets that the person may have that they might stand to lose through a Chapter 7 case? Because when you file Chapter 7, you're asking the court to just eliminate certain debts, and the court will do that, if you qualify and are eligible to file. However, that could come at a price. If you have assets that exceed a certain value, they may be subject to liquidation or auction in a Chapter 7. So we have to be really careful about that to make sure that if you're filing, you're not going to lose any of the things that you want to keep or protect. And if you are going to lose those things, does the benefit of filing and losing those things outweigh what happens otherwise?
I'm sure that you do a lot of pro and con lists when you bring people in and they're considering which options to use. And so I guess I'd love to know, what are some of the mistakes that people make when they are filing for bankruptcy?
Well, the biggest mistakes I see are, I think people try to outsmart the system or think that they know more than they do. And it's always good to get an opinion from a lawyer before you start to take measures and make moves. A big mistake I see people doing are moving assets out of their name before filing, or transferring things to someone else, giving things away, selling off assets. That can really hamper a Chapter 7 case. It can really actually create more problems than what we're able to solve. Another big mistake I see people doing all the time is a lot of people try to file Chapter 7 on their own. They'll file a bankruptcy without representation of counsel. And at the surface, that may look easy to do. Essentially you're filling out forms, disclosure forms. Now, there's a lot of them, but you're just filling out forms and answering questions. But the problem that I see is that without knowing the consequences of filing, you can really put yourself in a hole by doing that. So much of what an attorney does goes beyond just the filing of paperwork and the appearance at court. So much of what we do is looking at the scenario and advising the person, hey, if we do this, then that'll happen. So why don't we try this instead? That's something that you don't get when you're just filling out a form and sending it off. So that's a real big mistake I see people do all the time. I also see people who will take on a lot of debt right before filing, or borrow money from the wrong types of creditors within sometimes months, weeks, even days of filing, that can create a problem with filing bankruptcy. So the moral of the story is really, you should always get advice of an attorney. Talk to someone who's experienced in bankruptcy cases. You can get the information from them before you act on your own.
That's all very good advice. I'd love to mention too about what you said about using an attorney versus doing it yourself. The difference really is you're sitting there taking a lot of time filling out forms that you've never filled out before, most likely, and looking for information that you're not really sure you have the right information. And so when you have an attorney, what happens for you then is you've got somebody that is in court every single day dealing with these issues. And I know that the people in your firm are fantastic. They not only is it a situation where no one is going to look down on you or judge you, but you really are there to help them find the best option. So some people might be surprised to realize that this conversation we're having right now is very common. And like every single day, several times a day, you are just sitting down with people, listening to the issues, and putting the pegs in the right holes and finding, the right solution, or at least a few options for them, and explaining what the consequences are to certain actions. And so you don't get that if you are not an attorney and you've never filed for bankruptcy before. And, even if you have and you are an attorney, a lot of times you have someone else handle it because they are the ones that are the experts in that area. So number one, don't go to a general practitioner that handles 5 different types of law. So they're not going to marry you, divorce you, handle your bankruptcy. And I mean, it's crazy when you see that, because they just don't have the bandwidth. They don't to know all of the new things that are coming out, especially in this day and age where everything is changing so quickly. So, I mean, I just wanted to comment on that before we moved on to the next question. And, just, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. When you're doing a bankruptcy, you absolutely want counsel for it, but you also want an attorney that represents people all the time in this type of matter. Not only for their knowledge and expertise, but keeping up with the different forms, the changes in the law, the new judges, that sort of thing. Getting it right goes so far for you, and people don't realize that like our firm files cases every day, and we deal with the same people, the same judges, the same trustees, the same creditors every single day. And we've developed over the years a good reputation with all of them. When we file something, it's correct. We provide the documents in a timely fashion. We know the system. We know which trustee likes things a certain way, which judges like things a certain way. And doing that and be able to cater to the trustees and judges the way they want, I don't want to say we get favorable treatment. That's not fair. But the process does go a lot smoother than someone who maybe files 2 cases a year and has to stumble through it and refile a bunch of papers and file amendments and go to court and not have the documents ready for the trustee and not have things prepared. I mean, even if the trustee or the court's trying to be neutral, and it's hard. It's hard to be objective sometimes when you get people coming in and they're stumbling over themselves and they're never put together. Nothing ever seems to go smoothly for them. So yeah, hire an attorney, but hire somebody that knows what they're doing and knows the system and knows the people and the players involved in the system. It's very important to do that.
I couldn't agree with you more. The other thing that I'd love to touch on is that in your area of the law, it's not necessarily a situation where somebody comes in and they have to hire you right now. A lot of times people can and will procrastinate. And I just wanted to talk about, I know we touched on this a lot last week, but if you would love to touch on why people procrastinate and what are some of the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speculate as to why people procrastinate. Again, just to reiterate, I think what we talked about last week, some of the reasons might be just fear of the unknown, pride, someone else, giving them information, usually bad information from another source. I mean, there's any number of reasons people procrastinate. As to whether people who come in need to file immediately, actually, it's more common than you might think. And it may even be the case that when someone comes in, they don't realize how important it is for them to act quick. And I make this point all the time because the more you put it off, the more you're exposed, the more times bad things can happen to you. And I can't count the number of times where I will meet with a client, and they'll be in a situation where they've fallen behind on some things, or maybe they're about to fall behind, and it's inevitable that they're not going to be able to make their bills in a month or 2 or whatever. And I say, okay, well, we can file the bankruptcy, take care of this right now. 3-4 months from now, you'll have a discharge, you'll be on your way, good credit score in 1 year to 2 years, and everything's good. And then they'll say, okay, let me think about it. And that's the kiss of death. Let me think about it. So okay, fine, go think about it. Call me if you have any questions. We'll go home and I won't hear from them. I won't hear from them for 6 months. And then I'll get a call, late Friday afternoon, someone calling, freaking out, yelling and screaming, hey, I got to file this bankruptcy right now. I just got my paycheck and 25% of my paycheck's gone. They garnished me. What the hell? What's going to happen? How do I deal with this? Well, I mean, we can stop a garnishment like that, but had we done things back when we talked about it, we never would have gotten here. So yeah, maybe it didn't seem urgent at the time. Maybe it seemed like something would get kicked down the road. But you see the consequence of doing that is you end up getting hit. And then, yeah, we can stop a garnishment through bankruptcy, but you've lost some money now, and the garnishment doesn't stop instantly either. So it's going to take a little bit of time, sometimes a week, sometimes a month to stop a garnishment, depending on what court the garnishment was filed in. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff that can happen when you procrastinate. And I'll get other people, and I don't understand. I'll have someone come in and they'll have been being garnished for some time. Maybe a creditor's taken, a couple $1,000s over the last couple months. And I'll tell them, look, we can file the bankruptcy, we can stop the garnishment. In a lot of those cases, we can even get some of the money back. And I'll think, well, who wouldn't want to do that? There you go. You're going to get money back and get rid of your debt. What can be better than that? And they won't do it right away. And they come back 3-4 months later, and now instead of $2,000, they've lost $5,000. And I shake my head. I don't get that. I would love to be able to wrap my head around that, because maybe there's a better way I could deliver my message if I understood that a little bit better. But yeah, procrastination never pays. There are times when you might come in to see me about a bankruptcy and I tell you, hey, yeah, we could do it right now, but if we wait a month or two, something better will happen. I'll give you an example. Right now, I'll tell you what's going on with that. Getting rid of taxes, income taxes. You can discharge certain old IRS debts, taxes, as long as they're more than 3 years old and they fit other criteria. But the 3 years, that date goes back to when the tax return was filed. So for example, your 2016 taxes were due to be filed on April 15th of 17. So today's what, April 16th of 20, or 3 years later. Now the 2016 taxes actually just became dischargeable in bankruptcy because of that 3-year mark hit. So if someone came to me a month ago with a bunch of 2016 taxes, I might have said to them, hey, wait, we can file this now, but if you wait a month, we can get rid of another $3,000 that you owe to the government. Why don't we do that? So there are times when you do want to wait as a strategy, but most of the times, if you're waiting because of procrastination or uncertainty, that usually ends up bad for people.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like if somebody procrastinates in some situations, that it's actually going to take you a lot more work and therefore possibly cost them more down the road for you to fix what they did wrong.
Yeah, it's true. You pay a certain amount of money to file bankruptcy and then you're done. I mean, you're just done. If you wait, you pay that, plus you pay all the money that you were paying in as you waited. Whether that's voluntary by just making monthly payments or involuntary through a garnishment, it winds up costing you so much more, 2, 3, 4 times what a bankruptcy would have cost you. And that's money down the drain. And if you're talking about filing bankruptcy, you probably can't afford to lose that money. I mean, on my best day, I can't afford to lose a few $1,000s for stupid reasons, silly reasons. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you got to take care of the problem. You've recognized that you've made the first step. You've sat down with me, or in this case, you're on the phone with me. But I'm only telling you information for your own good. I really am. I mean, we are here to help people, and I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. And I know that that's absolutely true about you and your staff. Everybody there cares. Everybody there wants to see you in a better position in the future. And the other point I'd love to make is, like, right now, and this is meant to be an evergreen type of a blog, but at the moment we have people that are not filing, and they don't realize that they are going to be in a very long line to get into court, because courts are not working the way they typically do function. And so there are people that have cases that are waiting and maybe had dates, and their dates have been pushed off. So guess what? You've got all of those people ahead of you, plus the other smart people that are filing right now. So all of those people are going to be getting the relief that they need, whereas you will be waiting months and months later. And as you mentioned earlier, Tim, the longer you wait, the more wages might be getting garnished, the more fees that are piling up, and it just becomes a snowball effect where it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even though some creditors are laying off right now with this virus crisis, and the government's giving out money to some extent to help band-aid the situation, that doesn't mean it's a good idea to necessarily put off your problems, because we're not far from that part of this being over. The creditors are only going to be at bay for so long before they want their money and they want their cash flow to start again, and they start taking action against people. And that's just the ones that have temporarily slowed down. I mean, I would say most common creditors like credit cards and anything in default right now, I mean, they're going at people full tilt. They're not laying off. They're not holding off on garnishments or lawsuits right now, other than to the extent that the court system has slowed them down. They're going after people. They're going after stimulus money. You've got a bank garnishment in place, and a stimulus check hits your bank account. It might be gone. You may never see that money. There's a lot of reasons not to procrastinate. And also, it's kind of, I don't know, I've always found in life, sometimes it's a good idea just to go against the grain a little bit, to kind of go in a direction where not everyone's going, because you find that things go a little smoother. People are generally waiting, I think, to file bankruptcy right now. They're going to kind of wait and see what happens. Everyone wants to wait and see. No one's sure. Maybe there's not a good message out there, but no one's sure, so they're going to wait. And I can't tell you what's going to happen, but what I can tell you is what is happening now. And again, these creditors aren't going away. And if you file bankruptcy now, the process actually seems to be a little bit easier for the person filing, because of the reasons I think I mentioned earlier, that you don't have to go to court right now. 6 months ago, if you filed bankruptcy, you'd have to go to a hearing. Now you do that from home. You do it sitting in your living room or at your kitchen table or in your car if you want to. So you don't have to do those things. You still have to fulfill the requirement, but it's a little bit easier right now. And there's fewer people filing, so it just seems to be going a little bit quicker for people who are filing now. But I do imagine there's a date and time down the road, whether it's a month or 6 months, where, we're through all this Corona stuff, and all of a sudden, everyone's running for the exit door, and suddenly everybody wants to file bankruptcy. Now, all of us law firms, we're doing great business, but we can only take on so much of it. So there will be a line to wait in, and it might be more difficult and take longer to stop a garnishment, because the district courts that we have to contact to stop those, they're going to be inundated with requests to stop garnishment. So those judges may not be able to act as quickly as you need them to. So why not get it out of the way when there's less resistance? If you wait for everyone else to do it, you'll still get it done, but it might take a little bit longer. You might feel that pain for a longer period of time.
That makes a lot of sense. And, the one thing that we really haven't mentioned is, you might not be the only one affected by the financial crisis that you're feeling. Your family may be affected, or maybe your immediate family, maybe relatives that you're taking care of. I mean, there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and certainly just like on an airplane, which no one is flying on right now, but on an airplane where they say, in the case of an emergency, put your own mask on first before helping others. And so you can consider a bankruptcy that situation where you really need to help yourself in order to be able to continue helping the people that depend on you.
Yeah, can I steal that analogy? I like that one.
Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah, it's sometimes it is easier to help other people and just see a little bit more clearly once you've got your situation in order. So yeah, I know a lot of people are the type of people who want to help everyone around them first, and maybe that's by giving them things or telling them what to do or supporting them, however it might be. But sometimes you are able to see with better clarity once your situation is handled. And so yeah, I would say that is a great point. If you've got issues, let's get those resolved, and then maybe with the knowledge that you gain from, say, filing bankruptcy or taking control of the issue, you might be able to give better advice to your family members or your friends who seem to be in need.
Absolutely. And even when we look at somebody's, how you feel about yourself and how this sort of thing, usually it drags people down over years before they take control of it and decide to do something to help themselves. So by the time they come into you, they themselves are so down on themselves and their situation. They don't think much of themselves. They don't have self-confidence. And it really does impede their success in life. And their success in life is tied to the success of several people that depend on them. So this is another aspect of it. People don't think about the emotional aspect, but once you get the help that you need and you're feeling better, your whole life seems to change, and your outlook as well.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, life can be a grind if you let it, and the more you let problems weigh on you, the worse they become. Even if you get to the point where you think that you've just gotten over it and moved past it, that isn't real. You haven't solved the problem until the problem isn't there. You can't just put things aside. They will come back to bite you. And you are just, I have so many great clients, smart people, brilliant people, almost always really good, down to earth people. And, the situation that caused them to come to me is just obviously changed their outlook on life, changed their outlook on other things, impedes their ability to work, weighs on relationships. It hurts, to see that so often. And when I know that sometimes it's just such a simple, quick solution that we can offer, and we can take it and run with it so quickly and make it as seamless as you can imagine on your end. I mean, there really doesn't have to be difficult. I think, 90% of a bankruptcy is just getting over the fact that you need to do it. And then you're home free once you've made that realization. The rest is easy.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, thank you so much again for giving us this information and talking about some of the strategies and the reasons that you do what you do. It's very helpful to the audience, and I love that they get to know you and your firm a little bit better, and realize that you're really there to help and not to judge, and to help them see the light at the end of the tunnel in so many aspects of their life. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, thank you for what you do, Erica. I appreciate you helping me get my message out there. The more people that hear the message, the more people we can help. So thank you for your time.
You are welcome. It is my pleasure. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care.